Hi, I'm Laura. I'm the current Rotaract Australia chairperson. So I support Rotaractors and young people across Australia and some of the Pacific to do some really cool things locally and around the world. And in my other life, I work in communications for the federal government of Australia. Empathetic leadership is something that kind of has to happen these days. I think, particularly with everything that's happened in the last few years, COVID and I think it was really a chance for people to be like, no, the daily grind is not necessarily worth it. We need to have something more. We need to have more purpose. We need to be doing things because we want to be doing them. And I think particularly then for organizations like Rotary, it then became very easy to be like, no, I'm not getting on another Zoom call. I'm not spending hours and hours online when I'm locked in my house or I can't kind of leave the suburb that I live in. You had to have this empathy, and leaders, particularly in positions of authority, really needed to understand that it was right in your face that people are having bad days and they can't kind of do the things that they would normally do for self-care or to kind of balance their life out a little bit. And so I think for me, empathetic leadership kind of grew because I didn't necessarily, in my workplace, didn't necessarily have leaders who I looked up to for those kinds of reasons. They were excellent in their field, but if I had a really big problem potentially in my personal life or something that wasn't directly related to my work, I didn't necessarily feel like I could come and be like, hey, this thing is happening. I need some time. And so I guess for me, my journey as an empathetic leader has kind of been derived from that, because I would be mortified and I am mortified if someone who I'm kind of in my team comes up to me and says, hey, I'm so sorry I've let you down, I haven't done this thing. And, it's because they've had these really major life events happen. And I'm like, guys, no, that's totally fine. Rotaract or Rotary comes, is not at the top of the priority list. I get that. But also life has to be, family has to be, friends has to be. And, what can we do or what can I do as a leader to kind of enable you to deal with that or work through that so you can come back and do the things that you love. So I think, empathetic leadership is taking yourself out of the picture, but also putting the person you're talking to right at the center of that and working out how best to help them to continue doing what they want to be doing. As a worker, you can have a really great team around you. Your immediate boss can be really great, but the wider workplace might not be, right? And the same thing in a volunteer organization. The people that you see every day could be really great, but the wider organization isn't. Or what is probably more accurate in a Rotary sense is the purpose of Rotary is really great, and you wholeheartedly believe in the things that we're trying to achieve, but potentially the people that you talk to on an immediate basis might not be, might be going through a rough time, and so they're not particularly. It's not somewhere that you're getting a lot of value and pleasure being in, and so I think it's an interesting kind of question because it also can change. Being open to change, I think, is something that we need to acknowledge and be okay with and sit with, because you can sign up for something with the best intentions, and the people you sign up with might have the best intentions, but through no fault of the people that you interact with, change can happen. And I think you kind of then internally have to get to a place of, well, are you okay with this change? Are you you don't necessarily know what it's going to be like at the other end, but are you happy to be on that ride? Or are you like, no, this is whatever this is going to be, I don't want to be a part of it. And then you find something else. I think particularly after COVID or during COVID, they talk about people changing jobs and And the loyalty, I guess, isn't there necessarily anymore in a traditional sense of a workplace, people staying there for 20, 30, 40 years, and people changing careers. And I think that that's really important, because I think it gives people freedom to explore new things if whatever they've got currently going on is not working anymore. And that's exciting. I had this boss a few bosses ago, and she was like nothing I'd ever come across before. She was really direct. She knew exactly what she wanted. She knew exactly what she wanted of her team. But I always felt like if there was a problem, or if I wasn't going to be able to meet a deadline, I could go to her and she wouldn't yell at me. And that was a new experience for me. And that was really a changing point for me, because I was like, well, if she can do it, and she has had this incredible career doing a whole bunch of, things that I can't even begin to imagine, if she can do that and still have this thing called empathy, which, I was not what I was calling it at the time, then maybe if I could do what she's doing, then maybe the people that I lead or the people that I interact with might have a better time. For me, I take my job quite seriously, and, I think of the empathetic leaders that I have worked for, and just how nicely supported I felt. And, even on the worst days, I knew that the world wasn't going to end because I had this person in my corner. And, I really try and make sure that that happens to others. But how do you do that? For me, I think it's about showing that I am a human, because, leaders, you think of the most incredible leaders in the world, but they're all still just people. And if we remember that, then for me, it gets a little bit easier to say, hey, raising that white flag, saying I need some help. I really try and invest in the people that I am spending time with, and whether that's because they report to me, or whether that's because, we're friends and, we hang out on the weekends. I don't think there's a big difference between how you would treat your best friend in terms of looking after the whole person of them, or a co-worker or someone who reports to you, because at the end of the day, you still want to make sure that they're, happy and healthy and doing all of the things that they want to be able to do and achieve. So I think, and I guess as a leader, you then have that extra responsibility of, making sure that, they're doing the work that they need to do, but also they're progressing in a way that they want to progress. And what their progression looks like is up to them, right? But you have to kind of want to be able to be on the journey with them, and whatever you can do to support them is what you should do. I have a team of almost 30 at the moment, and it takes a lot of time, but at least every couple of weeks, I check in and have that one-on-one conversation with them. And I'm a very big note taker. I take lots and lots of notes, and I take notes in meetings. So when someone says, oh, I'm going out of town because, I'm going on a holiday to Cairns, the next time I see them, you can say, hey, how was the trip to Cairns? Tell me all about it, before we get into, the business of why we're chatting. And I think that's really important, because it shows that, you want to be invested in them as people. And again, being honest with them from your perspective. So, over Christmas and New Year's, everyone needed a break. Goodness knows everyone needed a break. And so I was really deliberate in making sure that people told me when they were going on holiday, not working, but when they were on holiday. So, and I made sure that I put it in my diary, and told everyone that I'd put it in my diary. And so, we didn't contact them whilst they were, in India, whilst they were in, another country, whilst they were on holidays, because it's really important to have that balance. But I wanted to make sure that the people in my team really knew that they could switch off, and that everything would be okay. Because I think, the guilt of, letting something lapse, or not doing something when it needs to be done, I know eats at me. Goodness knows it eats eats at me. And so I really wanted to make sure that the people who, everyone, when they were going on leave, someone else was picking it up, or, we'd resolved it enough that it wasn't going to be a problem, or someone else was doing it so that they could be confident that they could go and take a break and turn off and recharge so that we can come back after the holidays and, get back into it and do all the fun things again. So for me, it's really about, whilst you're investing in the person, it's about how do you best communicate with them? How do they respond? Do they want a text message before they get a phone call? And I guess the flip side of that is when things aren't happening, how do you deal with that? And I think, I hope that, through building relationships with people on a human to human level, when things aren't starting to happen or things don't happen or they drop off the face of the earth, then, you have that kind of rapport to be like, yo, what's the deal? And it's not, me coming down, cracking the whip. It's me asking because I care about you, but also we need to get this work done. As more and more people recognize the critical skill of empathetic leadership, that, organizations do start to change. And I think, on some levels, CEOs and really big or really top bosses are starting to see this as a really critical skill, but potentially, middle management hasn't quite got there yet. So, you've got workers who are crying out for that kind of human support, and you've got bosses right at the top saying, yep, definitely, have maternity leave, have paternity leave, finish early on a Friday, go home when your work's finished, not, clock in and clock out, to get the hours up. But then you've got this kind of shift that hasn't quite happened yet. That's like, well, if my immediate boss says something, I kind of have to listen to them because that's who I report to. But, that's not really working. And I think, potentially that's where we're seeing a big shift in people moving jobs and people moving industries and professions and doing things that arguably they are now passionate about rather than, what's expected of them, because they're seeking out empathetic leaders. And, I think that can only be a good thing as the kind of turnover of people kind of continue to happen. In Rotaract have a skills-based approach to the roles that we have. And, historically it's been, you need to have done this role to do the next role, to do the next role. But we, a few years ago, kind of threw that out quite forcefully and said, no, I don't care what you've done or who you are. If you've got the skills that I need, then I want you on the team. But that then presented a bunch of other problems, or not problems necessarily, but a bunch of other questions around how do we best support our people who have, different needs. And, one of my very good friends now, she has dyslexia, and she's like, I'm going to be a great comms person. I've got the design down. I can't spell. You're going to have to check everything that I'm going to post because no. I was like, cool. All right, let's do it. And I think it's about not saying, well, no, I don't have time to proof everything that you want to write or that I need you to write. It's about saying, okay, well, how do we build that into the publishing schedule so that things can happen when we need them to, but also so that you're supported. And, I didn't know much about dyslexia. So, I learnt and I read a bunch of stuff, and I asked her, I was like, well, what's going to make this easier for you? What strategies do you use that I can use as well? And so we had a really open conversation about that. But I think if we hadn't been in a place where I was really open about, like, what do you need from me? And her feeling a level of genuineness, she had to trust me as much as I was trusting her in that situation. And, we're doing a great job. I think she's amazing and she's doing an awesome job. I think we've got everything to gain by having more empathetic leaders, because we are people. And, when we're at work for 8-10 hours a day. Well, the rest of the time we're people living our lives, having, friends and family and trauma and exciting things. And that's why we go to work, because we then get paid and we get to go and do fun stuff. And if we can do fun stuff at work in a really supportive environment, then why would you move on from that? And I think, whether it's empathetic leadership, I think is also about recognizing the people and the humans and what do they want out of life. So, for me, it was, when I had a workplace that was giving me lots of professional development opportunities, or opportunities to extend what I was doing, or trying out new things, I was really excited to go to work every day. When I wasn't getting those things, and when I was, sitting at a desk wishing I was anywhere else, they weren't getting the best out of me, and I wasn't giving the best I could give, because none of us wanted to be there. And I think when you have empathetic leaders who, are doing their best to support the people they lead, they get the best out of them. But when you're in that kind of environment as a worker, you absolutely want to do your best, because you know that people appreciate you. And I think ultimately that's what we want, right? We are in jobs for a whole bunch of different reasons. And I think if you can find a couple of things that you want to get out of that job, and you do, then that's a fantastic thing. And when that job, I guess, isn't working anymore, or isn't working for you, or maybe isn't what you signed up for, then I think it's okay in this day and age to give yourself permission to find something else. Working out what you do want and pursuing that, I think, is something that these days is so encouraged, and I would absolutely be advocating for my people to be doing that. And whether that's in a workplace or whether that's in Rotary, there are many, many opportunities in this big wide world. If the one that you currently have isn't working for you, then absolutely go and find something that you love, because it's the absolute worst to be in a place that you hate, doing a thing that you hate, when, the next best thing could be right around the corner. And good managers, or empathetic managers, can recognize that and see that, and only want the best for their people. And, I hope that the people who look up to me see that, and wholeheartedly believe that I'm in their corner unconditionally. But if they want to go and do something else, then absolutely go and do it, because I will be there to celebrate.